the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and Happy New Year, and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. 2014 was not a good year for Ohio Democrats. In November, all of their candidates for statewide office lost. The head of the party, Chris Redfern, who lost his own seat in the Ohio House, resigned on election night as head of the party. Over the next month, a number of Democrats came forward as candidates to replace Redfern. On December the 17th, the party selected David Pepper as its new leader. I am joined now by David Pepper. David is well known here in Greater Cincinnati. He was the first elected Cincinnati City Council in 2001. He was elected to the Hamilton County Commission. He also run statewide twice. So getting well known statewide, which helped in this final decision. So David, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I have to begin with the question that several people have said I should ask you when I told them that you were going to be on the show. Do you need your head examined? I mean, why are you doing this?
Right. I've heard that a number of times.
I figured you had.
The truth is, this is not a glamorous position by any means, but it's a really important one. And the reason I chose to do it after November was, I've got a lot of experience, whether it be having served in office here, having run for office, having won tough campaigns down here, having run statewide campaigns in very tough years, but having learned a lot. And this is a position, especially when you start to see just how low the voter turnouts have gotten. I think both parties need to ask themselves, how can they do more to engage voters? Where we're starting to see in the non-presidential years such abysmally low turnout. I think it's very important that our parties both examine what they're doing, what they're talking about, because at this point it's just downright unhealthy to have an electorate so disengaged from the basic part of politics, which is voting. And so to me, that's a very important job. It's a job that can play a key role in lifting our politics, and that's what I hope to do. And I figured it was a logical extension of all the experience I have, both being in office as well as running for office, winning campaigns and losing some as well in tough years.
What will your job be? What is it? What is your job now?
Right. I mean, you obviously head the party. Formally, it's a large executive committee, and you're the chairman of that executive committee. But it's everything from finding good candidates to run for office to in election years like 16 and 18, making sure you've built the infrastructure to make sure you're getting voters engaged and out to vote, to communicating about the issues that matter most to voters, to running the organization, which depending on the year can be quite small or quite large. So it combines a lot of things. And I'll say, to your first question again, I'm very excited about it. There are challenges, no doubt. But I think there are huge opportunities to make a difference for the good. I mean, I've always run for office not just to win, but in the end to get in there and make a difference on issues that really matter. And this presents that same opportunity.
So is this a paid position, or is this, you're chairman of the executive committee? What is this something?
It is actually paid. It's a full-time paid position.
So are you going to be able to do this from Cincinnati? You have a young family?
I'll commute a lot. Let's put it this way. I'm not going to leave Cincinnati. That's my home. As people
Ohio's
know.
A big state.
It is. And so, I will shuttle a lot between here and Columbus and then around the whole state. But I will basically be located out of here.
Okay, so between now and 2016, which was the next general election in a presidential year, what's the task? Because you've mentioned a couple of times off-year elections, the turnout is so different. Right. But between now and 2016, what do you think is really important for Democrats?
I mean, two things. Obviously, there are very important races in 15, and one of the things we have to do is make sure voters understand that in the end there are no off-year elections. Okay. The problem is they're viewed that way, but the council races and mayor races across the entire state are very important. And so to make sure we're well positioned for those, there's a huge mayor's race now in Columbus, for example. People know this in Cincinnati. If you care about public safety in schools and a whole lot of other issues, it's that local race that determines what happens there. But beyond that, I think you're building the infrastructure, building the message, finding the candidates so that in 16 you've put everything in place to have a successful year. Now in Ohio, in 16, you've got not just the presidential race, you'll have several Supreme Court justice races and a Senate race all taking place. So you're doing everything you can in 15 to win in 15 the races that you want to win. but then you're also building the structure so you have a good effort in 16.
Well, part of that relationship of local races to the state races is you have to build people who have the experience. You build the bench, in effect, people who can take that next step. And that's absolutely essential to either party.
It is. And one of the most fun things I did in office was try and mentor young candidates. You know, P.G. Sittenfeld, when he was in high school, was an intern for me, and he
was already running.
Right,
sure.
he was already on his way. But one of the things I've always done is try and reach out to the next generation and help them get to where they want to go, and that's good for them, but it's also good for the party. So yeah, one of the most important things we can do is find talented young people, even before they've run for office. We need more good young people, frankly, at both sides, to want to be in office. That's really important to our system. Not just, there's obviously a lot of opportunities these days with the internet and startups. We need good talented people to want to be in public service. And so one is creating a culture where we welcome them in, and two, once they get into places like a school board or a city council or a state legislature, to find those who have the potential to move up and do everything we can to help them get there.
You know, everybody knows, and it's already being talked about in the national press, that Ohio is a battleground state. And if you, President Obama won it 2 times in a row, we have one Republican senator, one Democratic senator, but when you get down below that, you get into this really weird situation that our congressional delegation, 12 Republicans, 4 Democrats. The Ohio House, 60-something, 30-something. The Senate, 30, whatever it is, it's 10 members from the Democratic Party. And this all gets down to districting, which you talked about a lot in your last race, because you would have been, if you had won, you would have been part of that redistricting. There's just been a new law passed. What do you think of the new law, and how important is that to the future of this 2-party competitive system that you're talking about?
There is nothing more important to fix in this state, and frankly in this country, than the current system of gerrymandering. It's made for a completely unrepresentative democracy, as you just mentioned. We have a 50-50 state. That's how our citizens vote, but the results are supermajorities, 75-25, for instance, in the Congress. It also has created poisoned politics, where if the only thing you fear is your next primary, because your general election is predetermined by the district, then all you'll do is be as extreme as possible. And that's why no one gets along. That's why nothing gets done. And so fixing that is critical. It's one of my priorities. And I give both sides, Republicans and Democrats, a lot of credit. A couple weeks ago, they did come together. I think both sides, reasonable people on both sides, said this system is absolutely a failure. It fails the citizens, and it fails the basic duty to get things done on behalf of the citizens. And so, is it perfect? No, but compromise never is. But this is certainly a step in the right direction, and my hope is to make sure we help get it done. Now, that change from the legislature a couple weeks ago only dealt with the state legislature. It didn't deal with the federal side, and I think that has to be the next step. We can't just stop with this. We've got to keep moving forward. So when Ohio votes about 50-50 for Congress people, the results in terms of the makeup of Ohio's congressional delegation should be about 50-50. And most elections should be competitive. They shouldn't be predetermined. So I'm very committed to helping to fix this. It is around the country. These changes only happen if they're bipartisan. That is the lesson learned around the country. So no one party will ever be able to strong-arm this result. It has to be both sides. That's what happened a couple weeks ago, and that's how we're going to have to continue to approach it. But in the end, it's better for everybody if we fix this so we actually have competitive districts.
So this latest change in the state law, do you think that in fact it's going to make a difference in the state Senate and the House of Representatives on the Ohio level? Because that's where you say it's focused. Do you think that's going to make a difference over time in the proportions?
I do. I think it provides a lot more both almost guarantees of working together, and incentives to work together. It's not perfect. I mean, if you could draw from scratch, I think the academics and others could draw a much better system, but this is the one that both sides could agree to. And so I think it will. I mean, I think it provides enough of safeguards that we should see better districts going forward. And like I said, I commend both sides. They worked really hard to get it done, and I think both sides are starting to figure out extreme gerrymandered districts just don't work for anybody.
You know, on the federal level, on the House of Representatives, we have the Ohio Senate up right now. We can get rid of that now. But on the federal level, you just take our area.
Right.
You have the city of Cincinnati, which is the largest political entity in Southwest Ohio, is heavily Democratic for all sorts of reasons. Yet, when you look at the districts around us on both sides of the river, there's pretty much not a chance for a Democrat to win any of the 4 districts that surround us right now. And so when you talk about turnout and engagement and young people believing that it's worth getting involved, it's hard if it's a foregone conclusion.
No, it's a big part of it. I mean, they're basically in Ohio. Was not one congressional election this year that was close. And only 1 or 2 where there even was a competitor who made a fight from the other side. We want to know why people feel disengaged. The politicians constructed a system that made them disengaged automatically. And so it's just not, it's a terrible system. I always joke that this was a system that Vladimir Putin would admire, because it basically guarantees the outcomes of elections no matter what the voters do. No matter what happens, we will have 12 Republican congressmen and 4 Democratic congressmen. It doesn't matter what the voters do. And I'm not saying that as a partisan matter, it's just a fact. That's a terrible system where I could tell you right now the outcome of almost every election for the next 6 years. No. In the end of the day, that's not that democratic a system. That's why fixing it is so important.
So you've been around the state a lot. On the Democratic side, who are the hopeful people? Who should we be looking for? Who do you think is the future of the Democratic Party?
I would say there are a lot of very strong state legislators. You know, you saw Connie Pillich just run. She ran a very good race. You have a lot of folks from around the state in the state legislature, very impressive. You have some really strong mayors. You have some mayors who've been around a long time who are strong, you know, up in Cleveland and Columbus, but then you have new, I'd say, star mayors that are next generation. John Cranley out of Cincinnati, Nan Whaley out of Dayton. So you have and then you have also other local officials. There is no shortage of very talented people on the Democratic bench. I think the party needs to be smarter about promoting them, about having people understand who they are, what they're doing, what issues they're fighting for, what issues they're standing up on. But we have between the State House and the mayorships all over, because as outnumbered as we are in the State House, most of the cities are run by Democratic mayors. And they are doing big things, important things every single day.
Well, you just ran a statewide race. Did you get the messaging right?
I would say collectively, no. I feel very good about the very strong race we ran. But I would say, did people show up knowing what the Democratic ticket stood for? No. To be really direct about it, we had a governor candidate who didn't even have a television ad in the final 2.5 months. So as people showed up, they literally didn't know what we were about. It says something that more people voted in the Attorney General's race than voted in the governor's race. There was no message at the top on our side, and I think that hurt everybody. I think I delivered a strong message about what I would do and support from the police, as well as what I would reform. But as a ticket, we had very little message, because the top of the ticket, frankly, in the end, didn't have one.
And I have less than a minute left, but what do you think are the key issues, 1 or 2 issues, that the party ought to embrace moving forward?
I think there's been decades of stagnant wages in the state. The employment number may go up and down depending on the national environment, but wages are stagnant. People are working harder and making less. It's been occurring for decades. It's especially happening not just in cities, but smaller towns, as we've seen manufacturing replaced. And I think, speaking to that bottom line concern that families can't get as far as they used to, and they're working harder, is probably the number one issue that people are concerned about, and simply showing a few employment numbers doesn't address that concern. I'd say that and public education are the top two.
I have to get out. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks, Dan.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after a break with the leader of the Drop-In Center. Welcome back. Over the last 4 or 5 years since the publication of Homeless to Homes report, a great deal has changed about the response of Cincinnati to those who are homeless. Since 1978, the Drop-In Center on 12th Street and Over the Rhine has operated as the primary refuge for homeless individuals. It has provided shelter, food, counseling, and programming to assist men and women at some of the most difficult moments in their lives. It has also been controversial, not only for the advocacy and its leadership, but also because of its location close to Music Hall. The massive reinvestment in OTR in the last 12 years has simply increased those issues. Now the implementation of Homeless to Homes plan is bringing huge changes to the center. Some that are obvious, many that are not from the outside. I am joined this morning by the Executive Director of the Drop-In Center, Arlene Nolan. Arlene, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me.
Drop-In Center is just a staple in Cincinnati life for anybody who is concerned about the homeless. Right now, as it stands, how many people are you caring for? How many people are using your services? I don't know if you want to put that on a daily, a weekly, or however you want to count that. How much is this used?
We are a huge resource for people experiencing homelessness in our city. We serve over 60% of the single adult population experiencing homelessness. On an average daily basis, that's over 200 people per night. And in the winter, our numbers swell to closer to 350 on a single night. Those numbers are pretty significant, and we are absolutely an essential part of the solution to solving homelessness in our area.
And it's not just providing housing, and that's what I was trying to hint at the end here, but there are all kinds of services that you provide to try to help those people who find themselves needing your services.
Absolutely. We are way more than just an emergency shelter. We obviously provide the shelter, but we also provide the services and housing that is necessary to help people out of homelessness. Our jobs more and more is connecting people, helping them maneuver through the vast array of resources that are out there, and there are a lot in our community. And just connecting people with services, connecting them with the resources. Either we provide the housing or services, or it's our partners in helping people maneuver through the system.
Now, you were saying that your focuses are on individual men and women. It is not, the Drop-In Center itself doesn't really respond to the needs of homeless families. Is that correct?
That is correct. We were founded to serve single men, and then we expanded that to serve single women, but we do not serve families. There are several family shelters in our city that do provide that service.
But that's even an area that I think this city needs to get more focused on.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if anybody knows, but last year there were 8,000 people that were considered homeless in our community, and 30% of those were children, which is incredible. That is something that our local continuum of care is addressing and hoping to implement a plan similar to the Homeless to Homes plan.
The continuum of care is, of course, the organization, and there's a lot of changes taking place in this area. The City Gospel Mission, which has also historically been in Over the Rhine, is moving to the West End. Anna Louise Inn, which has been in Lytle Park and has served a different function, but is moving up on Reading Road. There's another shelter for women on Reading Road, and I understand right across from United Way, and am I correct, that this is what the Drop-In Center will now take responsibility for?
It's an exciting time for all of us, especially for the Drop-In Center. We are currently developing 2 new facilities, one for women. We're developing a 60-bed emergency shelter and services center on the same campus as the Anna Louise Inn. Anna Louise Inn is a permanent supportive housing for women, and we are the emergency shelter component. So these are brand new state-of-the-art facilities that will offer enhanced services, well-managed coordination of care for women experiencing homelessness.
And then your other shelter that you're developing is for men, and you're going to be moving over to the butternut bread factory and redeveloping that on West Fifth Street, right?
Correct. We have been exploring the opportunity, the possibility of finding an alternative site for men since 2010. So it's been a long time coming, and we were excited to find the old butternut bread factory in Queensgate. So situated on 3 acres. It's an 80,000 square foot facility that will hold 150 men. But what it also allows us to do is in the winter expand to accommodate an additional 200 people during the coldest months of the year, which is really exciting. The men's facility is fantastic. It's really going to be a model for serving homeless individuals in our country, we believe.
Well, how much square footage will it have?
It'll have about 3 times the size of our current facility.
That was the key I was getting to.
3 times the size, and it's designed, every square inch is designed the way in which we believe is the best way to serve people coming through our facility. And what the neat thing about it is it's not a drop-in center facility. It really is a facility for our partners to come in and provide the services to the people that are there. Even though they're there temporarily, it's a way of us helping people out of homelessness permanently.
To what extent, these are emergency shelters.
Correct.
To what extent do you see people that you interact with actually being able to move themselves out of homelessness into more permanent situations that are viable and that they can manage and economically and otherwise?
You know, over the last couple of years, we've not been standing still. It's not been business as usual. We've made changes internally to try and help more and more people. Changes like get out of homelessness permanently. Mm-hmm. And I cannot emphasize how the one-on-one case management, helping people, as I say, moving through the system, helping people address the barriers and the issues that basically cause them to be homeless in the first place is key. These new facilities are wonderful, and they will greatly help us improve the way in which we provide service, but having people to help men and women maneuver through the system is key. And even once they're in housing, just being a resource, being available for them to make sure they maintain their housing is vital.
To do this, to develop these 2 new facilities, to do the staffing so that you can have the programming that you were just talking about that is effective, what sort of budget are you looking at now? What sort of budget will it grow, I presume? What are we talking about, and where does that money come from?
Well, we could develop these facilities and not have the money to operate them. So while with the whole Homeless to Homes plan, call for not only coming up with the funding for the capital funding, but also the operating funding to sustain these centers. And I think as a community, we've done a good job of really planning for this. We've worked with strategies to end homelessness and the other shelters, including 3CDC, to help us come up with the funding for these for our operating budgets. And I think we've got a good plan in place. We were lucky to be part of the Indigent Care Levy, mm-hmm. which will be available. That funding will be available to us in 2015 and beyond for the next 3 years at least. Okay. So we've been mindful of the fact that we have to ensure that we are sustainable.
I'm just about out of time, but if you had one thing that you really wished people knew about or could do to make your job, make it possible for you to do your job, what would it be?
It's just that we are more than just a place that warehouse people experiencing homelessness. We really are about results, and more we are providing results for our community, and we're an essential part of the solution for ending homelessness.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Newsmakers part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women working to make our community better for everyone. Have a good week.